Hey everybody, it is Nathan from Doctors of Running. Tonight I am going to be talking to you guys and giving you a review of the Nike Pegasus 38. Believe it or not, this is actually the first Nike shoe that I've ever owned and ran in. We actually purchased this one as a team. It was not sent to us for review. This is something that we purchased. And so we're going to give you guys a review of it. We purchased it through Running Warehouse. And it's so strange. I reviewed over 70 shoes last year in 2020, and you know, I've been running for a long time before that. And the most I've ever ran in a Nike shoe was when I was going to buy my first pair of running shoes. I tried on a couple in the store. One of them was the Pegasus. I don't know what it would have been at that time, but I also tried on the New Balance 890. It would have been version 2 at the time. That's what I ended up purchasing over the Pegasus at the time, but that was the most I've ever ran in a Nike shoe before. I have put the 4% on my feet and ran about a quarter mile on them. I don't count that as wear testing, obviously, but this is the first shoe that I've worn from Nike that I own and have gotten a lot of miles on. So I'm excited to talk to you guys about it and tell you a little bit about the shoe. Obviously, this has been one of the most trusted and long-standing shoes out there for daily trainers, and we're gonna dive in. So the first thing, we'll just kind of walk through the construction. So the upper is a mesh upper, kind of layered mesh. There's the outer layer of mesh that you can see here, has some stretch to it, and then underneath, when you follow inside, the gusseted tongue continues through the whole forefoot, and so it's kind of this layered mesh. You have the outer layer and then the gusseted tongue that provides 2 layers, which makes it a little bit thicker, but it's still pretty breathable, isn't too warm. You have this lacing system, which has 4 different straps that slide through the whole midfoot, so it gives a lot of adaptability for lacing. And then just overall, definitely a much more narrow fit from heel to forefoot. Locks down really well. True to size for me, I'm a men's size 9. True to size, it was snug, but it was not too snug to do, obviously, daily training in. The weight for this shoe in men's size 9 is 10.2 ounces. It's got a 10 millimeter drop stack I got down here, 33 millimeters in the heel, 23 in the forefoot. It's a full React midsole with the Air Zoom pods in the forefoot, and we're going to talk about kind of how that responded, and then you have a durable rubber on the outside. Okay, so there's the main breakdown. My testing experience in these was good. Very soft. I was, to be honest, this is my first Nike shoe, probably for a reason. I don't have like a huge philosophical thing against Nike, but growing up, my dad never let us buy Nike, and he never really told us why. So I just kind of always steered away from it just because parents are influential. So this is the first shoe I've had, and I didn't know if I wanted to like it, but I did. I really enjoyed running in the shoe. That's not really why I wanted to do this review, to tell you that I liked running in it. That's not super valuable. But a couple of things that I definitely noticed: the React midsole is very soft and bouncy, and I would say shoes that were most akin to it recently was actually the Nova Blast 2, just the amount of bounce and softness that you get. With the softness, combined with the slightly more narrow outsole contact with the ground, especially through the midfoot, this is not the most stable shoe that you're going to find out there for somebody who has needs and stability medially and laterally in their foot. I know Matt tried it. He tested the 37 last year, caused him personally a lot of problems. He knows that he has specific needs for stability. So for people looking for a more stable daily trainer, this is probably not your option. But what I really wanted to dig into with the Pegasus 38, and also expand it to a couple other topics, is talking about the Air Zoom pockets that they have here in the forefoot. So anytime that I took this shoe for more than about 45 minutes, so if it was an hour or more especially, at the beginning of the run, it would feel like it was one nice soft unit. It all kind of flowed together. I didn't notice the AirPods anywhere. Just very smooth from heel to forefoot. Has this really nice bevel. The foam bounces really well, really smooth and relatively propulsive and cushioned toe off. But by the time I would get done with 45 minutes to an hour, I would kind of stop and I would stand in the shoe, and I could definitely feel the pods under my foot. Now that's not, I want to be clear, like that isn't a deal breaker regarding this shoe, but I think it does help illustrate an idea about changing midsole compounds within a shoe. So if you have This is one example where you have a midsole, you have air pockets, these air pods here. Another example would be a dual density midsole for like a medial post, or even in Hoka with the J-frame. You can think about the Glide Ride, where it has kind of these combinations of foam sticking together, the Mizuno Sky and Horizon series that have different foams interacting. When you put two different midsole materials together, there's a chance that they respond differently over time. We know that foam and the matrix in it over the course of a run go from their typical size to a slightly compressed state, and it takes time for them to reform to their normal status again. What I could notice in this shoe is that the foam, the React foam, would compress more than the AirPods would in the forefoot. It didn't cause me huge problems. I did notice a little bit of soreness through the balls of my feet. So for people who have perennial issues with metatarsalgia, or have limited motion maybe, or just some arthritis in the MTP joints, metatarsophalangeal joints, that's kind of the main toe joints, that could be a consideration for you if that's a typical problem, just because the foam around the AirPods is likely going to compress more than the AirPods will themselves, which is going to put a little bit extra pressure through where the AirPods are at. So I think that's something worth considering. And that's also why, if we go back to the talking about dual density midsoles, there's a chance that over time those two foams are going to wear differently. I have a lot of people who come into our clinic who I take their shoes and I set them down on the table, and instead of sitting nice and flat, the inside of the shoe that has the firmer midsole compared to the outside, the inside sits here, and the shoe actually tilts like this on the table because the lateral side of the midsole has compressed a lot more than the medial side. And so for people who are running in dual density midsoles, I think it's worth doing kind of a simple table test where you set down your shoes, and you can even use the center line of the shoe to look at, am I starting to have asymmetrical wear? Is that potentially something that's going to cause me problems or issues down the line? But again, this is a really smooth shoe, really soft, not the most stable due to the more narrow outsole contact. I personally, won't use this for longer runs. I kind of like it for an hour and below, just because I was getting a little bit of that pressure and soreness in the balls of my feet. But a lot of people might not have that issue at all, and so take that with a grain of salt, but just as a consideration for you as you think about what shoes might be best for you. So there are my thoughts on the Nike Air Zoom Pegasus 38, my first ever Nike running shoe. I would say it was overall a good experience. I don't have high stability needs, so I was able to enjoy the really soft and bouncy midsole, and then just it was an interesting thing to think about the concept of how different types of midsole materials may compress or change or have different durability than one another, and what that might mean for the runner. Have a great day, guys. Oh, wait, before we go, on the day I'm recording this, big deal, Bucks just had some redemption. They swept the Heat in 4, so for any Heat fans out there, I'm sorry, but it's fun to have redemption this year. Go Bucks.